Well, hello there. My name is Ian, and welcome to my YouTube channel. So, joining me today for the first time in a little while is my good buddy Jonathan Cornell from Immersive Audio Album. And today we're going to talk about the upcoming surround mix releases for the months of April, May, and we may have a little bit of June surprises in store for you. So, these are all releases that have been announced. I don't think we're going to do much speculating here. But there are a couple here that we have lots to talk about. So let's just get underway. Up first, we have some March recaps to cover. And at the end of our previous video, Jonathan, I asked you if IAA had anything new and exciting in store. And I think you said, yes, but I can't tell you what. Well, let's talk about it. So this is Snarky Puppies. We Like It Here. I did purchase this, and I haven't had much time yet to listen to it, but listen to a couple tracks, watch the videos with it, and I think this is a fantastic release. So, Jonathan, why don't you tell us about Snarky Puppies, We Like It Here, available from immersiveaudioalbum.com.
Well, I would add to that only that it's not just We Like It Here, it's the whole Snarky Puppy catalog. So they have another 3 records that were already available on Blu-ray and Atmos. So there's Empire Central from 2023. Then they did a remix of their album Silva from, I think, 2014 or 13. And most recently, the Somni record that came out at the end of 2025. So the We Like It Here record was originally from 2014, but a remix of it came out for the 10th anniversary. It was remixed by Nick Hard, who's the new, their sort of go-to engineer for the last couple years. So he remixed it from the original multi-tracks, and they had done an Atmos mix only for streaming services. So I think a lot of people speculated that they would eventually do a Blu-ray of it because they had done all the other ones. But based on my conversations with the sort of management of their label, Ground Up Music, apparently that was never the case. I don't think they intended to do a Blu-ray of it, so I'm glad we were able to release it as a download. And I was also able to sync up the new Atmos mixes with the video footage from 2014. So this goes for all the Snarky releases where the performance is professionally filmed, like with a multicam shoot alongside the Atmos audio. So when you watch it, in a home theater setting, it's quite an experience, because you're looking at the band and the instruments are kind of all around you, which is to say that it's hard to kind of classify these albums. Like, they're not exactly studio albums. They're not exactly live, but, I mean, if you consider them live, I would say these are sort of among the most elaborate live mixes ever done. It feels like you're in the middle of the band. It's a huge ensemble.
Yeah.
And the other thing I would mention only is that if you have the previous Blu-ray editions, we were able to fix a couple issues with these other 2 albums with Silva and Somni. For the Silva record, actually for both of them, the Atmos dial norm stream was encoded incorrectly, so the Atmos mixes would play super quiet. There are a couple of Blu-ray releases that have this problem, most notably the Waka Wazoo Frank Zappa. The Atmos mixes play really quiet on that. So I was able to fix that. There were also a couple of extra tracks on the Silva album. There was a bonus version of one of the songs, like a different take, where they had done an Atmos mix that was on Apple Music, but for whatever reason, it wasn't on the Blu-ray, so we were able to fix that. And also, the Somni record was recorded at 96K resolution. So I was able to make a 96K, 5.1 render of the Atmos mix, and also include an Oro 3D edition. So Oro 3D is another immersive format like Atmos that supports up to 714. But unlike True HD, it goes to 96K. So all that is to say, if you already have these, I'm not saying please go double dip for the downloads, but there is exclusive content that is not on these. But the one I was most excited about doing was We Like It Here, because there's no Blu-ray of it. And so far, the response to it has been very positive. So I'm glad about that.
Super. I know I had one of these albums or 2 of these albums like 10 years ago, back when they first came out. And I do remember that they had surround mixes included. And I looked into this a little bit and discovered that the surround mixes that were included originally were up mixes. from the stereo masters. So this is the first time that this album in particular has been presented in a true multi-channel format. So really cool that you guys were able to do that.
I know there was a DVD of this album that came out when it originally came out in 2014, and that's why they shot the video for it. But I guess like in 2014, you know, doing a surround mix was kind of less in vogue than it is now. So maybe they didn't want to put the budget into it, but the Atmos mix is most certainly a real surround mix and quite a good one.
Absolutely. Cool. All right. And a good opportunity to mention before we move on that I do recommend using the Neumi device to play back these files. And I am going to leave a link to purchase the Neumi Atom 4K in the description. So really cool device to play back any kind of digital Atmos files. And we have some more digital releases to talk about very, very soon.
And if you haven't seen it, check out like our video that we did last month, or was it the month before, about, you know, playing back Atmos files and our experiences with that.
Yep. Good stuff. All right, so this is another release from March, and I don't think we covered this one on our previous video.
Yeah, so this is from the same label that the Snarky Puppy releases came from. It's called Ground Up Music, and it was founded by Michael Leake, who's the founder and band leader of Snarky Puppy. So this album was, you know, there's a lot of Snarky Puppy connections. Michael Leake was involved in the composition and recording of the album. It was also mixed by Nick Hard, who did all the Snarky Puppy stuff. And it's quite similar in style to the Snarky Puppy albums, kind of like fusion jazz. I think this is a bigger ensemble than Snarky. It's more of like a big band kind of thing, but very much the same kind of mixing style, you know, with the where you're in the middle of the ensemble. And if you liked the Snarky releases, I think chances are you'll probably like this as well. So not too much to say about it other than that.
Is this another IAA download?
Yes.
Cool.
And though it's also on Apple Music. So the album came out in July of 2025. So the Atmos mix has been up there since, but the high-res version is exclusive to IAA, yes.
Cool. Good to know. All right. And this came out a few weeks ago now, but Steven Wilson's Headphone Dust store has finally issued his brand new Atmos mix of Hand Cannot Erase, his studio album from 2015. And we were just talking about earlier how we both own the 5.1 mixes of that. And one of the all-time great multi-channel mixes of all time has been, recently upgraded. And, obviously I covered the Raven Atmos release from Headphone Dust with our friend Mike Vieta on his channel. So go check out that review. And we do plan to cover this mix on my channel. Mike and I are going to review it, but I confess I haven't had a chance to listen to this yet. I've just been so busy. Work and Bongo Fury have been kind of central to everything these last few weeks, but I take it you've had a chance to hear this, Jonathan.
Well, I was honored to be asked by Steven to test it back when he did it. So this mix was done in, I believe, July of 2025, like late July, early August, something like that. And one of the things that was cool about it is, though I agree the original 5.1 mix was quite good, it was one of those mixes like from that period where I felt like there were a couple kind of nagging issues that had always bugged me. Particularly on a couple of the songs, the vocals are mixed quite low, I find. Like it's one of those mixes where I kind of want to turn the center channel up a little bit.
Yeah.
It varies depending on the song, but generally a lot of the parts mixed to the center channel, usually vocals, some of the guitar solos, I felt were kind of buried relative to the stereo mix. So in both the revised 5.1 mix and in the Atmos, he was able to sort of fix those problems. So in general, I think there's, a real improvement going from the 2015 release to this, even if you're just going to listen to the 5.1 mix. And as with the Raven, because the album is so dense, it suits having the extra speakers really well.
Yeah. Well, I thought the Raven was a huge upgrade. So I'm curious to see what he did this. I've bought it. I have it. I just need to carve out a couple of hours to spend with it. But I did have a chance to sample it a little bit. I do think it sounds fantastic. But I think it's nice that he included the videos. So if Routine doesn't already tear your heart out enough, you can see the live video with it, and it will utterly destroy you. And what more could you ask from a Steven Wilson album than that?
That's the idea. I always think of that. There's that thing where he, that live recording where he's like, happy music makes me sad. Sad music makes me happy. Right.
I think he said that when I saw him, when he introduced Routine in 2015. I think he actually said that on stage. So
personally, the one I'm most excited for is this one. Whenever he gets around to doing Atmos of this record, because this was my gateway Steven Wilson album and still one of my favorites.
Yeah, and I agree with you on that, because I revisited that 5.1 mix, and it's probably my least favorite of his solo 5.1 mixes, because it's a little bit harsh sounding. It's a little bit compressed. So I'm curious to see what he's able to do with that in Atmos, if he changes the character of it.
Yeah, I agree with you.
All right. So this is one that we did cover in our last video, so we're just going to touch upon it because it's not out yet. But this is Richard Barbieri's Hauntings, and this comes out April 10th. And we discussed in our previous video, which you can go back and watch, Richard, of course, was a member of Japan originally, and is perhaps best known these days as the keyboardist for Porcupine Tree. And he's kind of renowned for these great soundscapes. He's not like a super technically proficient Rick Wakeman style keyboardist, although, he's no slouch. Don't get me wrong. He's a great musician. But Richard's all about atmosphere, which makes him a perfect keyboardist for Porcupine Tree, and indeed a perfect candidate for a surround mix.
Yeah, the only other thing I'll mention about this one is that we were speculating at the time that maybe Steven had done this mix, but it turns out that's not the case. It was done by someone named Steve D'Agostino, who I think has worked with Richard before. But one thing I did think was interesting is I found an interview that he had did with the Interviews website, Anil Prasad's site, if you're familiar with him. He does these great long form interviews, kind of an inspiration for me. But he had asked if they were interested in doing Atmos mixes of the Japan albums, like Tin Drum. And one thing that was a bit disconcerting is that I saw Richard mention that they don't know where the tapes are for that album.
That's not good.
Yeah. But apparently the interest is there to do it. So you never know. I think that would be an incredible surround mix.
Statistically, surround mixers named Steve are always excellent. So go with the Steves. That's what I say.
Yes.
All right. And here's another one that we discussed on our previous video. So not much more to add. Go back and watch that other one if you'd like to hear our commentary. But this comes out the 17th of April. And this is Motörhead and his On Parole record. And this has been mixed by Steven Wilson. So I think you had explained on our previous video that these are the sort of the bridge between the Hawkwind and the Motörhead albums, although stylistically more in common with the Motörhead albums. But this is pre-Motörhead's first record, correct?
Yeah, I mean, technically it is their first record, but then it was sort of shelved and it ended up being released later after their subsequent albums became more successful. So I think they would tell you, or at least there's quotes from Lemmy, that they recut some of these songs and they ended up liking the result better on the later versions. But I think this record's pretty cool, and it's an interesting study in how you can take sort of pared down rock and make it work well in Atmos. We always talk about how creative Steven Wilson can be in sort of making these immersive experiences out of records that weren't designed to be heard that way, and I think this is a good example of that.
Very cool. All right, so here's another one that we discussed rather recently. And this is Heaven 17's Penthouse and Pavement and The Luxury Gap. And this is a SDE website exclusive. So I'll have to check and see if this is still available for order. I'm guessing probably not. But if you didn't get a chance to order it, we did talk about it on the last one. So don't tell us that you didn't hear it from us. We tried.
I think when we did the last video, it was just announced too.
Okay. Yeah.
But these are David Kosten Atmos mixes, and I've really enjoyed all the ones he's done so far. Thompson Twins, Propaganda, keen. So, based on his previous work, I expect these will probably be very good.
It appears they are sold out, so I'm very sorry if this is the first you're learning of them. Yeah, I didn't order them, but David Kosten, I'm sure, has done a wonderful job. So I'm guessing there will be an IAA review of these at some point. So
yeah, possibly.
Just look at Jonathan's page if you're interested in seeing what these are all about. So, okay, we are now entering the first of the releases that we haven't talked about yet, although I think we may have included it on our speculation video at the beginning of the year. And that's Jeff Buckley's Grace, a mix which just kind of came onto streaming unceremoniously out of the blue, and it blew us all away. So this is a Steven Wilson remix of a classic 90s record. I listened to it once. I have to say that I don't know if Jeff Buckley doesn't quite connect with me, but I'm probably going to end up buying the Blu-ray anyhow because I'm a Steven Wilson head, and I'm curious to see how it sounds on physical media. I'm not always the biggest streaming fan. Sometimes I feel a disconnect. So maybe I'll find myself getting into this record more when I hear it on Blu-ray. The most important thing I think to mention is that it's very affordable. This isn't a box locked release like we kind of feared it might have been or thought it might have been. This is a release that you can order now on Amazon for like $20. In fact, if you check my description, I'm going to include a link to it. So, Jonathan, you've spent more time with this record than I have. Tell me a little bit about it.
Well, when I talked to Steven recently, if you go on the IA YouTube channel, I'm guessing a lot of people who are watching this probably have already seen that. But there's quite an extended section where we talked about this particular record and kind of what his philosophy was and mixing it in Atmos. And one of the great things about it coming out on Blu-ray, aside from the fact that you get the high-res Atmos mixes, there's also a unique 5.1 mix. So when I was testing it back in December, he had done a 96K 5.1 mix just as on the way to doing the Atmos that never would have come out had it stayed on streaming. I mean, had the Atmos mix only been released on streaming. And it does sound different than the Atmos in terms of how the instruments are placed.
Yeah.
But it's funny because we were talking about the interview. He was kind of like, well, I don't know if they plan to do a physical edition, but I've certainly asked for one. So I'm glad, he was able to get that done, or the label was, convinced to do it. And this could easily have been a huge box set because there haven't historically been that many reissues of this album. And per Steven, there's a lot of outtake stuff on the tapes, him tuning up different performances of Hallelujah and some of the other cover songs. So, this could easily have been a 10 disc box set, and I'm glad it's not.
Me too, because I would have felt compelled to buy that despite not being a huge fan of the album. And it would have been a case where I would have listened to just the surround mix and the other CDs would have sat on the shelf, and I'd have felt guilty about buying it. So at this price point, I'm happy to take a chance on it to see if it'll grow on me, because how many albums over the years have you heard for the first time and been like, I'm not sure if this is for me. And then you find years down the line that it's connected with you and it becomes one of your favorite things. So I'm certainly open to that happening with this record. And, for $20, happy to give it a shot. So good on you, Sony. I'm glad that this is coming out as a standalone Blu-ray release.
Yeah, absolutely.
So here's another exclusive preview that perhaps hasn't been announced anywhere else. And that's the release of Christopher Holt's live version of Across the Milky Way. So I have the immense pleasure and opportunity to have the mixer here with us today. Jonathan, tell us what we can expect from Chris's Across the Milky Way live.
Well, we talked, this is the cover for the studio album, of course, because we don't have a cover yet for the live record. But if you recall, when we talked about when I mixed the studio version in Atmos, it came out back in October. One of the sort of projects we had down the line was when the album first came out in May of 2025, Chris put together a 9-piece band, for a one-night only gig at a venue called the Kessler in Dallas. And they played the entire record through, in sequence. And there's also a 6-song encore of older songs from his back catalog.
Mhm.
And they had the gig professionally shot with a multicam setup and recorded, multi-track. So we had the idea, for this to be an IAA exclusive as MKV files, where we would include, a fresh edit of the video showing the concert and also an immersive mix. So I was, it was a fun opportunity to sort of do my own, Steven Wilson Home Invasion or Eagles Hell Freezes Over. We did a video a couple months ago talking about our favorite live surround mixes, and it's a fun opportunity for me to do one myself and try to sort of take all the things I've liked about other people's surround live concerts and adapt them to this project. And I would say that it's not as aggressive as the studio album. I mean, you've heard a draft version of it, but it is, there are certainly instruments coming out of the back, and it does feel like you're in the middle of the ensemble, and the performance is really good. So I'm super excited about this. The tentative release date is the 17th. We're kind of, in the final stages of mixing it and getting it approved, and the video edit. It was a massive amount of work, as anyone who knows, as anyone who's mixed a live album can tell you. There's a lot of kind of fixing you have to do, because there could be, bits where like you hear a guitar amp buzz, or, there could be wrong notes played, but you don't want to, fix it up too much because you want it to be authentic. So I think we found the right balance with it. I'm really proud of the work we've done so far, and I'm excited to see what people think of it when it comes out.
Yeah. Well, I'm extremely honored to have been included as one of the testers for this mix. And I still need to listen to your most recent draft, but I felt that the album came across much better on stage than on record. It had a lot more energy and immediacy to it, especially those opening tracks. So really excited to hear what people think of this. And for more information, for updates, the best place to check is immersiveaudioalbum.com, because that's where it'll be released. And I'm guessing that you'll do the YouTube promotional tour when that comes out, and interviews, and we'll talk to Chris maybe. And I'm sure there'll be a lot of notice when this comes out. So for those of you who are fans of this album and are interested in Jonathan's work and Chris's work, you might want to keep an eye out for this, because it's going to be a great release. All right. This is one I think we also discussed on the previous video, but it comes out on the 17th of April. And this is A Bad Think, Season 14. Again, we did talk about this before, so you can go back and refer to that old video. Anything else to add?
The only bit of new information I have is the release date, because originally we just sort of had it as like tentatively spring, but now April 17th is the release date on IAA. Cool. And I've also done an interview with the artist that's going to come out on the probably IAA YouTube channel, and a print version on the site, probably on the same day it comes out. So you should be hearing more about this pretty soon. And cool. if you like the other A Bad Think Atmos releases, I think you'll like this one as well. And
what genre is this?
It's kind of crossover. Like, there's bits of it that are kind of proggy. There's bits of it that have sort of a bit of country to it, but it's like sort of experimental rock.
Nice. Well, that sounds up my alley, honestly. I'd probably really enjoy this. So cool release. And now we're up to April 24th. And this is David Stapleton, Quiet Fire. So this is another one of your mixes, correct?
Yes. So one of our vendors at IA is this jazz label called Edition Records. The I think one release that came through them that we may have talked about on this channel were the 2 Donnie McCaslin records. So we had pitched to them the idea of having us create more mixes for you. So Dave Stapleton is the head of the label. He's also a jazz musician, and this is his latest solo album. The stereo version, I believe, came out at the end of February. I would call this sort of jazz fusion. Maybe it kind of borders on ambient. Most of the tracks it's basically just like drums and bass and a variety of layered synthesizers, like Rhodes piano, all kinds of different interesting synth sounds. So, mixing it in Atmos, there's a lot you can do, like having the synths like move around. It's kind of a different sort of texture, and because of the nature of it, the rules are different than if you were mixing like a rock band.
Sure.
So, I mean, I've done one pass at the mix so far, and I'm pretty happy with how it's come out so far. A couple of the songs have like sax and trumpet solos, but it's a really interesting kind of like, turn the lights down, listen at night kind of album.
Very, very cool. Well, to the guy who asked about Atmos mixes to listen at night, keep your eye out for this. And I should also add that if you're wondering why you haven't heard much from Jonathan or myself for that matter in the past month, just look at the release schedule. So Jonathan has a mix coming out on the 17th and one coming out a week later on the 24th. So he's been very busy.
I'm also working simultaneously in about 2 others.
Yeah, I don't know about. These are 3 mixes I don't even know about. And, I've been very busy with my own work too. So good stuff. Just from your description, it sounds like it would be very much up my alley. And I hope I get a chance to hear this at some point. So now we are up to May, and this is a release from planned for the 1st of May. And this is Tori Amos's next record, In Times of Dragons. And, I'm familiar with her work a little bit because my cousin was really into her when we were growing up. Used to play her stuff for me, but this is an artist that I haven't thought of in years. And I think it's probably a unique circumstance in that it's a new album that's coming like directly out as a SDE exclusive. I think maybe only Tears for Fears have done that, but you can correct me on that.
There was also the X Propaganda record, The Heart is Strange. That was another one where it came out in Atmos the same time as the new album release. And same thing, kind of like a new record by an older artist.
Yeah.
But as I was mentioning to you off camera, there are a bunch of other relatively recent Tori records that have had Atmos mixes. I think the last one that they did an SD exclusive was this record called Unrepentant Geraldines that was from 2014, and they had done an Atmos mix for the 10th anniversary. But I would say for me, the one that I've enjoyed the most, weighing both the music and the mix, is Ocean to Ocean, which came out in 2021. So that was like a very early Atmos mix, but it's a really good one. So I hope they get around to doing a Blu-ray of that at some point. Yeah,
hope so. I mean, I probably won't pick this up. I sampled the new track that's out, and it really wasn't for me. But hey, it's cool that she's embracing this format, and not only that, but embracing physical media. And I believe this is still available for pre-order. I guess I'll check that real quick.
You gotta be careful saying that.
Yeah, I probably will eat my words in 5 seconds. It's sold out. Yep, ate my words. So. You can't get this yet. Sorry, folks. Well, you can stream it. Sorry. And here's the thing. SDE does occasionally reprint their stuff. They just reprinted the Tears for Fears album, The Hurting, which I have on order. So if you do stick it out and keep an eye on their site, subscribe to their newsletter, sometimes things do come back. So if this sold out well enough, I mean, maybe it will.
Or like they have a couple where people canceled the pre-order and like a few stray copies become available around the time of release day. So you never know.
But great title, great cover. I haven't more to say. It's not out yet. So coming out the 1st of May is this studio album from the Eagles, One of These Nights. And I'm not much of an Eagles fan, but Jonathan, you know more about them than I do, so I'll just turn it over to you. I'm like Jeff Bridges in The Big Lebowski when it comes to the Eagles.
I knew you were going to say that. But yeah, so my dad was a huge Eagles fan, so naturally I'm a fan as well. But One of These Nights was their 4th studio record, I believe, and it has 3 of their biggest songs, which are One of These Nights, Lion Eyes, and Take It to the Limit.
Okay.
So the Eagles have a history of releasing stuff in surround. Most notably, there was the Elliot Shiner 5.1 mix of Hotel California, which is fantastic. Yeah. So highly recommend this. And it's available in a bunch of other formats too. Like there was a SACD of it. There was also a box set that came out more recently that had a Blu-ray, but it's all the same 5.1 mix that was done in 2001 or 2002. And they've also got a bunch of great live records that are available in surround, like Hell Freezes Over and the Farewell Tour live from Melbourne, which I think I mentioned when we did our live albums video.
You did, yeah.
So I think they're one of those bands where a lot of people were kind of waiting and hoping to see if they would do Atmos of any of their back catalog. I would have thought Hotel California would be the one because this year's the 50th anniversary. It originally came out in 1976. But I think this project has been gestating for quite some time. And there's a new stereo mix as well. And both of these mixes were done by a guy named Rob Jacobs, who has worked with Don Henley in the past. Most notably, he worked with Henley on this solo album called The End of the Innocents, which had a 5.1 release in the 90s on one of those DTS discs. So I think he might have done the 5.1 mix. I know for sure he was involved in the stereo version. And, if you like the material, this is a pretty good kind of like early 5.1 mix, like just when the format was starting to take off for music. I think this is pretty hard to find, but there's some good songs on it.
Sure.
But anyway, I would say the thing that bothers me about this set, I mean, on the one hand, it's quite affordable. I think it's like $39 for 4 discs, which is not unreasonable. Like, this is another one where it could have been a $200 box set. But there was a quad mix of this album in the 70s. So I have the quad vinyl here. I think it was quite a late quad release because you could see just this little sticker saying so. Otherwise, it looks like a stereo record.
Yeah.
But you would think this would have been the perfect opportunity to put the quad mix on the Blu-ray with the new Atmos mix. A lot of people have speculated that maybe the band doesn't like the quad mix. Either, it would surprise me if they've actually heard it. But I mean, it's possible that it was done without their approval originally, and thus they don't want it to be reissued. The 2 Eagles albums that were released in quad, this one and On the Border, which was the previous album, if you know the records, they both have a lot of differences. I mean, I don't want to call them mistakes, but like there are parts where things are missing, like a backing vocal line that was in the stereo mix that's not in the quad mix. So I guess maybe that's one reason people have speculated as to why it hasn't been included. Maybe they don't know where the tapes are, but I feel like, Rhino has put out so much stuff in quad. They have the Quadio series. They've done releases like the Chicago 2 Steven Wilson mix where they put on the quad. So I have to think there was some reason why they weren't able to put that mix on this release. But I'm excited to hear what the record sounds like in Atmos. The title track is available on Apple Music, and it seemed like a pretty conservative mix to me. I mean, I wouldn't say it was awful, but it was definitely not as spread out as the quad. So we'll see what happens when the whole record comes out. But I think it's a good thing for the future of Atmos releases when a band as big as the Eagles is embracing the format.
Sure. Yeah. And the only thing I would add is that if they had done Hotel California, I might actually have bought that one because that's just one of those albums that any audiophile should probably own. And should know because it's just so well recorded. And I'm guessing the same is true for this one as well.
I mean, I'm not sure the 5.1 mix could be beaten for Hotel California. Like, it's really, really good.
Yeah, Shiner's the man. So we're moving on now to the 8th of May. And this is Mr. Big with Hey Man. So I know a little bit about Mr. Big. They opened for Rush in the late 80s. So is this a new record from them or is this a catalog title?
It's a catalog title. It was originally released in 1996. So it's the 30th anniversary. So this is from this label based out in Hong Kong, I believe, called Evo Sound. And they've been releasing some stuff on SACD in 5.1. So they've done the previous Mr. Big albums, the self-titled one and Lean Into It, which has their biggest hit, To Be With You.
Okay.
And also they are one of IAA's vendors. So it's very unusual kind of the release strategy with these mixes where so all these records are being mixed in Atmos, but the physical editions have been on SACD with 5.1 and then the Atmos mixes just go to streaming. So fortunately, IAA has been able to step in and provide a place to release the full bandwidth Atmos versions. So for this particular release, and I literally like just got the masters for this like a couple days ago. It was a 96K Atmos file. So there's going to be a bunch of different formats in the MKV download. There's going to be a 96K 5.1 mix. There's going to be an Oro 3D mix. There's going to be a binaural mix and also the usual true HD Atmos. And I think there's also going to be a 5.1 SACD, which is presumably also a reduction of the Atmos version. So, I mean, of course I'm biased, but I would say go for the IA download because you get more formats than the SACD.
Right on. Well, it's cool to see IAA getting bigger artists like this. Really happy to see where you guys are headed, and you know, can't wait to see what's available in the future. I wish I had more to say about Mr. Big, but I've never really listened to them. But we are now moving into the 15th of May, and we've got some incredible releases. Bruce Soord has been a busy man, and this is his new solo record, right? This is Ghosts in the Park.
Yes. So I was fortunate also to test this one. The 5.1 and Atmos mixes were done like late January or early February of this year. And as you know, I'm a big fan of pretty much everything Bruce does, but I particularly really like his last 3 solo records.
Mm-hmm.
So there's the self-titled Bruce Soord album from 2015, All This Will Be Yours from 2019, and my favorite of the 3, Luminescence, which I think you have also heard and can attest.
I like that one a lot. Yeah.
It's a very good album.
Yep.
So I think if you like those 3 records, kind of the difference between Bruce with the Pineapple Thief and Bruce solo is the solo stuff tends to be a bit more like mellow singer-songwriter, whereas the Pineapple Thief kind of rocks out with more electric instruments and of course Gavin Harrison's drumming.
Yeah.
So one of the things that's cool about this release is that, for one thing, it's the first of his solo albums to come out on Blu-ray.
Okay.
We're trying also to do an IA download of this. I think they might make us wait until after like the deluxe edition sells out or something. Sure. I'm not 100% sure about that. But yeah, so it's the second one to have an Atmos mix. Luminescence had an Atmos mix that was only released over IA because the physical edition was a DVD. But there are 3 different versions of the record on the Blu-ray. So there's the normal album. Then there's an acoustic version where basically all the instruments have been muted except the acoustic guitar and the vocals. And as you know from Bruce's music, generally he tracks a lot of vocals and a lot of guitar layers. So it's still like there's still plenty to spread around in Atmos. And it's interesting when you take the drums away, the songs have this more kind of haunting quality. So I thought that was a cool idea. And then there's an entirely different version of the record where the guitars are replaced with pianos. But I think it's the same vocal. Like it's not like he sang it again, but just the backing track is replaced. So 3 versions of the album, and all 3 of them are in stereo, 5.1, and Atmos. So I know some people are annoyed this is in like a sort of $60 art book, but you have to hand it to him for packing the Blu-ray with stuff. Yeah, that's the thing. Bruce Soord has been really good about putting out great Blu-ray releases. Like I didn't buy that Pineapple Thief box that came out, but that, you want to talk about value for your money, that had a ton of content. Yeah, it had 8 albums on one disc. Yeah, 8 albums on one disc, and I'd like to see more people embrace that. Like like for instance, let's just say Rush released their entire catalog in Atmos on Blu-ray. If they put 8 albums on one disc, they could make that set like only a couple of discs, and you would have everything. Yeah, we have more to say about Bruce Soord soon. And this whole thing of releasing multiple versions of the same album seems to be a theme with them. But we're going to talk about that very, very soon. First up, though, we're going to talk about Kraftwerk and their follow-up to the great Autobahn record. And this is Radioactivity. I'm excited for this. I'm a Kraftwerk fan, but this is also the one album of theirs from the classic period I don't own already, and I've never heard. So happy to have more of this. Autobahn was one of my favorite releases of, 2023, 2024, whenever that came out. And I've been eager for the follow-up. Obviously, the ones that I'm really looking forward to are probably Trans-Europe Express and Man Machine. But I can't wait to hear what they do with it. Any thoughts on this, Jonathan? I can only agree with you about wanting Trans-Europe Express. My dad had that record on vinyl, like he bought it when it came out. So that one and Autobahn are the only 2 I really know. This one I've never heard. But the Atmos mix of Autobahn was excellent, and I'm glad this is another standalone Blu-ray. So, even if I end up not liking the album, to pick this up for $20, why not?
Oh yeah, I've got this on order, man. I can't wait. And like anything else that's available, you can visit the description and you will find a link to order this. So, and if you do order through my Amazon affiliate link, it does support the channel in a very small way, but meaningful way. So please do consider doing that. But it's time to talk about the one that I'm most excited to talk about. I don't know how you feel. But this is coming May 15th. We finally got a release date after waiting what feels like months. We've been in this situation where it could come anytime now, and it feels like we've been there for like 6 weeks. But it's finally here. It's not an April Fool's prank. Jethro Tull's Under Wraps is going to get reissued in the box set format, which will match their previous editions. And it will include a host of extras. And I think most importantly, Ian Anderson's Walk in Delight album. So let's break down the contents. There's a lot to talk about. So first up, you have 2 mixes of each record. So you have the Under Wraps album in 2 versions, one with 2026 drums and one with the original drums. This is, by the way, all being mixed by Bruce Soord. And then we also get Walk in Delight in 2 versions, the original drums, 2026 drums. There are studio outtakes, new songs included in the extras, which if you look at Burning Shed, you can see what those are. And we get Atmos mixes of both records and the extras. I think the Blu-ray disc has some extras that aren't announced, because if you follow the Steve Hoffman threads board, there's a user who is testing the Blu-ray disc, and he's talked about rehearsals, demo sessions, all kinds of interesting audio nuggets. Now, I have one really major area of concern here that I'm going to talk about, and I also want you to say a few things here in just a moment, because I know you've interviewed Bruce, and that's on your channel right now. But my biggest issue is that the concert, which is included, which is the BBC Radio one concert, Hammersmith Odeon 1984, is incomplete. This was, they performed over 2 nights at Hammersmith, September 8th and September 9th. Those were the day after and 2 days after the release of the album. So very, these songs were very fresh when they performed them. Now, the edit that we are getting with the box set appears to be the broadcast edit, which is different than that raw fruit CD, which came out in 1990 or thereabouts. So it's a little bit longer. We do get the clasp and a few extra songs. But what's frustrating about this is that this edit omits all of the songs, I think, except for 1 or 2. All of the Under Wraps songs are omitted from this edit. So it's a bit like, what's the point? And, so anyway, I'm of 2 minds of this. On one hand, these concerts have been available for years. The radio broadcasts are in excellent quality. You can download them from Wolfgang's Vault or whatever the equivalent is now. I think they've kind of changed their marketing, their branding a little bit. So it's not like these are unavailable concerts. Our previous box sets have included unreleased concerts, which, was obviously great. But I do think that it's a major detriment to this set that the complete shows aren't included. So Jonathan, I'll turn this over to you. You can kind of hype up your interview with Bruce Soord if you want to, and talk about whatever you feel comfortable talking about.
Well, I think it was an open question as to whether they were going to reissue this album at all. Because I know Steven Wilson had been saying for a long time that Broadsword was going to be the last one that he would do.
Yeah.
So I guess it was a question of if they could find someone who was, up to that standard to continue the series. And I think Bruce was a great choice. So back in September of last year, again, I was very honored when Bruce asked me to listen to some in-progress versions of these mixes, the surround versions. I think the stereo one was already locked in by the time I came to be involved. So it was very cool that I got to have a little bit of input into the surround mixes. And so when in the beginning of this year, I think like around February, we were kind of under the impression that a announcement would be coming relatively soon. So I did an interview with Bruce like in the beginning of February. We taped it just talking about, getting really in depth into the mixing process. And like, I've been waiting for the last 2 months to release it. Like we've been like, maybe it's going to be released next week. Maybe it's going to be announced next week. So the release date, the announcement date was finally today, April 1st, which is when we're taping this. So I was able to release the interview both as a print version and as a video on the IA YouTube channel. So I think the video answers a lot of questions that people may have had about mixing process, particularly like with regards to the use of drum triggers and why only the 2026 mixes are in surround and the original drum remixes are only in stereo. I think it's just because that's the way that Ian wanted it, or because they ran out of space on the Blu-ray.
That's really what it was. They ran out of space.
So, that's kind of what we speculated in the video, because Bruce mentioned that they went right down to the wire with, the 50 gig available on the Blu-ray.
Yeah. Yeah. So, you have the 2 albums in Atmos 5.1 in stereo on the Blu-ray, plus these demo recordings, which are going to be really interesting to hear. I think it's worth talking about the mix of Lap of Luxury, which was released at midnight on April 1st. And I had the opportunity to hear it a few times. I listened to it in headphones. I listened to it in a couple of different systems. And I have some thoughts. Do you want to get into that?
Well, I'm going to make a bold claim, which is that I think the Atmos mix is one of the best I've ever heard of a vintage record. It's that good. It's super elaborate, with the placement of all the synth and overlaying vocal parts. Yeah. As Bruce mentioned in the video, I think it's an album that feels like it was made for multi-channel or spatial audio.
Oh yeah.
So the surround versions, big thumbs up for me. And as someone who doesn't have like a sentimental attachment to the record from having listened to it, I think the drum replacement works better than the original. I think it sounds a lot warmer, a lot punchier.
Oh, it does.
Yeah. But I'll let you take it from there.
Yeah, it does. Okay. I listened to the mix again a couple of times, and the first thing I noticed was that it almost sounds like on the original mix that the drums are mono, and they have this like very abrasive sound to them that I think puts a lot of people off the record, because it starts with that drum sound. Lap of Luxury starts with that drum sound. And the first thing I noticed is that Bruce was able to spread out the drums more. So, you can very clearly hear like the kick drum, the snare drum, the toms, the cymbal sounds. Personally, I think I would have preferred a drum sound that was a little closer to Don Perry's sound at the time. Like a little bit of a heavier drum sound, a little bit of a weightier sound. The drums do sound a bit of a light touch to me, and that's not a criticism. It's just that I've been listening to it with that aggressive sound for 30 years, and it's taking me some getting used to. Now we'll see how it is in a couple of months when I'm able to hear the whole thing. Maybe I'll find that I accept it the way it is. But right now it's like, this is taking a little getting used to. I do appreciate the fact that Bruce has brought Dave Pegg to the front. I think that helps the album a lot. I also noticed that the keyboards are more evenly spread. You've got Martin Barr primarily on the left side, Vitessi's on the right, but I also hear a little bit of like synths that are like either harmonizing or doubling the guitar parts that almost sound like the exact same tone that Martin's using on the guitar. And that's a level of detail I've never been able to hear in this album before. So, high marks for that. I also wanted to mention that Ian's voice sounds like it's processed a little bit differently. It almost sounds to me like some different takes were used in the vocal take. So I don't know what went into that, if he had to recomp them or something from different takes, who knows? I do think that it's a much more dynamic mix. I do notice some issues where like it sounds like the drums are like doubled or something, or like there's an extra hit. And I wonder if that's a product of triggering something off of a drum machine from 40 years ago. where they just kind of left in those little idiosyncrasies because they're part of the album, and that's fine with me. It's just something that kind of jumped out at me. It's like, oh, I'm not used to hearing that. Overall, I'm happy with it. The issue that I have is that it's a great mix, but it doesn't make Lap of Luxury a better song.
Well, there's no accounting for that.
Yeah, exactly. And that's not Bruce's fault. It's not my favorite. It's like maybe one of the dullest Tull songs. But there's other material on this record that I like a lot more. So I'm looking forward to hearing what he did with Tundra, Nobody's Car, Heat, the title track. Like there's a lot of material on this that I like better, is what I'm saying. So curious to hear more samples from this, but I think we're off to a good start. Again, my only concern is that the live show isn't complete, and I think that's a huge oversight. And I'll get into why I think that just briefly. I think that, as we know, this album was cut live to the drum machine. And that does have this sort of effect on it to where tempo wise, it tends to kind of stay in the same place for a lot of the songs. It doesn't change much. And dynamically, it tends to be a little bit monotonous. And that's something that a remix, I think, isn't going to help a whole lot with. Now, when it comes to the live performances of this material, Don Perry's slamming behind the kit and kicking the band forward. And I think that the Unwrapped tunes, especially songs like Apogee and Nobody's Car, come across a lot better live. To me, it's a real shame that those aren't included. Now, as I mentioned earlier, you can go download those. The radio broadcast audio is excellent. So is it really that big of a deal? Probably not. To me, it was kind of a lost cause when I discovered that the multi-tracks couldn't be found, because what I really wanted was a Bruce Soord mix of the entire concert.
Me too.
Since they're basically just dealing with the same audio that we already have, I'm not sure it's even necessary to include the concert at all. So that would be my my advice to anybody who's going to buy this set, is to go seek out the Hammersmith shows, because they are available complete on the web if you know where to find them. So I think that's all I have to say on this. Was there anything you wanted to add?
I mean, I think it's an interesting trade-off, because I agree with your comment that, like, because of the nature of what the album is, like with the drum machine, it does become sort of monotonous, because every song has basically the same tempo, except for the acoustic track, Unwrapped 2, is kind of a nice like palate cleanser in the middle. Mm-hmm. Yeah. But I think the magic of the album to me, especially in surround, is like all the layering that Ian did. Yeah. Well, Ian and Peter, like all the different keyboard parts and all the like little like interesting vocal bits. We in the interview with Bruce, we talked a lot about this, and in the live version, like you kind of get the like energy back, because there's an actual human playing the drums, but it doesn't have all that like sound design. So it's kind of like neither one is quite perfect, but it's interesting to hear the songs presented in a different way. And I mean, I think we basically covered it there, and I'm excited to see what people think of the surround versions, because I think they're really good.
Yeah, me too. I can't wait to hear them. I'm sure that the surround mix is going to be a completely different experience than the stereo mix. And honestly, I'm looking forward to hearing the stereo mix with the original drums. Because I'm one of those people who didn't really hate them. I just thought that the way that they were mixed was unappealing, but with a sympathetic mix, I think that the original drums might be okay, honestly.
Well, it's funny you say that, because that's exactly what Bruce said. He thought that the programming was done well, but in his words, he said the original mix, like the drums were too loud and had like too much like reverb on them. So yeah.
All right, good stuff. This was announced just this morning. And this is a new release from Alan Parsons' project. And this is Eye in the Sky in Dolby Atmos. And oh boy, what interesting timing, because I just sold my 5.1 mix the other day. So
I got it here.
Very cool. Okay, so you and I have, I think, somewhat similar opinions on the Alan Parsons project mixes, but we also disagree on some kind of minor points. But generally, I liked Tales of Mystery and Imagination a lot.
That seems to be like, if you go on the forums, like that seems to be the one that's universally liked of all the ones that have gotten Blu-ray.
Yeah, and that's interesting. Yeah,
because it's also it's the most like proggy album, right? Yeah. Like they start to go in sort of more pop direction after that.
Yeah, but some of these mixes that they've done here recently have been kind of heavy-handed and not the most adventurous. So I don't know, because you may have noticed, like I didn't review iRobot because I wasn't too crazy about it. It kind of had a very toppy sound to it, a very, very shrill and brittle sound to it. So I don't know if I'm going to buy this. It's nice that they're releasing it as a standalone. And I mean, this is a wonderful album, but I kind of sold my 5.1 mix for all the reasons I just explained. I compared this to an 80s copy that my mother had, and the 80s CD just blew away the 5.1 mix in terms of fidelity. So putting this out there because I know that people are Alan Parsons Project fans. I know that people like to collect the surround mixes. There would have been a time when I jumped on this, but there is just so much other good stuff coming out. There is so much other good stuff coming out on the same day as this. So yeah. Any further thoughts, Jonathan?
My take on it is, I think I liked Tales. The 5.1 mix, I kind of disagree with you. I thought it was pretty good.
Yeah.
I mean, you could say this about a bunch of these albums, but for me, this album is like, there's a couple of good songs and there's like some filler. Like Serious Eye in the Sky, of course, is great. I think Silence and I is great. Old and Wise, but some of the other songs, I don't know, like You're Gonna Get Your Fingers Burned. Like that's kind of filler for me. But after this one is where it sort of starts to go downhill for me. Like Ammonia Avenue 5.1 mix is pretty bright. Turn of a Friendly Card, even brighter, I thought. And then for me, the one that was the worst in that regard was iRobot. I mean, Atmos mix peels the paint off my walls on that album.
Yeah.
So,
and not in a good way.
Yeah. And I'm surprised like more people don't think so. I don't know, different systems, different preferences. I don't know. But I was really looking forward to that one because that's probably my favorite Alan Parsons record, iRobot. So that was too bad. But I'm a little sort of hesitant as to sort of, since they've been kind of declining in quality for me. But, Eye in the Sky is certainly a record where there's enough, instruments to justify doing an Atmos mix. I could think of so many cool things you could do, especially with the title track, maybe putting the backing vocals up in the heights or some of the keyboards or something. So yeah, I'm curious. I mean, at least it's not in a box set, right?
Right. Yeah. Well, Alan Parsons Project have been really good about that. They will put out a box set, but then, wait a couple months and then the standalone Blu-ray comes, and it's usually not too expensive. These do tend to come from the UK, so they, may run, more than $30, but, it's worth it if you love the music, I think. And somebody out there, this is going to be the thing they're most excited for, I'm sure. So, by all means, go check it out. It's, again, releasing on May 15th, along with, just a host of other amazing stuff. So now we are moving into June, and this is Devin Townsend's The Moth. And now, Jonathan, you were telling me that you're starting to get into Devin a little bit.
Well, he's one of those guys kind of like, Steven Wilson or Bruce Soord, where they kind of have their own musical universe of a bunch of different projects. So I think his original project was this kind of death metal thing called Strapping Young Lad, which, is sort of outside my interest. But after that, he starts doing these kind of, I guess you could call it prog, some of these records like, Ocean Machine or Key. And the first one I had heard, because it got a surround mix, I think it was the first one that he did in surround, was this record called Empath that came out in, I want to say 2017, 2018, something like that. It was like right before the pandemic. And that had a deluxe issue with the 5.1 mix. And that's a really interesting record. Like his style seems to be to like really like layer things up. And it's got kind of like there's a theatrical quality to that album. Like there's sort of these parts where he's playing characters, like almost like operatic. Like there's parts of it that kind of remind me of Queen almost.
Very cool.
I mean, he's an incredible singer. Like he does these like, he can go from like a scream to a clean voice to falsetto. Really interesting guy. Like I'm just starting to scratch the surface. And then the other surround release I've got is this live album called Order of Magnitude that's from the Empath tour. And I don't know if this is still in print, but it had I would say, an above average live surround mix where there was more than just ambience and crowd noise behind you. So I think he's been working on this album for a decade. Like, it's been a long time in the making. And the sort of buzz around it in his fan base has been really good so far. So, you know, if it's anything like Empath, I'm sure there'll be plenty of instruments to spread around in an Atmos mix, and I'm eager to check it out.
Cool. Yeah, he's one of those guys that I know is really special. I know that I would probably love it. I just haven't had the time to check it out. But good to hear he's got a new record out, and glad to hear that he's continuing to embrace multi-channel formats. So on the 19th of June, this is another one that we discussed in our previous videos, so you know, go check it out. But this is Marillion.com from 1999.
Yep.
What else can we say? I don't think either of us has heard this record, but the Marillion surround mixes, well, I guess I'll say this. The Marillion box sets have been generally really good. The surround mixes for them can be inconsistent. So this isn't one that I'm going to run out and buy necessarily, but if you folks want to check it out, you know, let me know what you think. If this is like a great Marillion record and we're sleeping on it, let us know in the comments below, because maybe we'll make the effort. But
I mean, the only thing I would add to that is I think it's great that they've been getting enough interest in these deluxe editions that they're doing them for the albums that they control.
Yeah,
because when the series started, it was originally just like supposed to be the 8 albums for when they were signed to EMI, which were the 4 with Fish and then the first 4 with H. But it seems like those did well enough that they're willing to sort of go beyond to the maybe less popular albums.
Yeah.
I mean, there's a record they made around the beginning of the 2000s called Marbles that Steven Wilson was originally involved in. I think he mixed a couple tracks for it, and I really like that record, and I hope they get to that one at least with these deluxe editions. You know, it would be even better if they could get Steven to mix it.
Yeah, that's the thing. So, all right. This is also on June 19th, and this is an announcement that just blew me away when it came in, because I was not expecting it. But this is Roxy Music's Flesh and Blood. And this is a continuation of the excellent series of Bryan Ferry and Roxy Music albums that have been overseen by Bob Clearmountain. And Bob Clearmountain is one of my top engineers, and I know he's one of yours. He's one of those engineers that if he's involved and it's Roxy Music related or Bryan Ferry related, I have to have it. Even though I don't know this album, I've not really spent much time listening to it. I know it's going to be excellent. I know it's going to be worth hearing. So this was an insta buy for me. Any thoughts on this, Jonathan?
Well, as you know, because I've mentioned it in other videos, I think I brought this up when we did our 4-way video with Mike and Ryan, that for a long time we've had just Avalon and the first album in surround.
Yeah.
And people have been wondering, like, are they going to do the other ones? I mean, I've been wondering personally.
Sure.
Because then we got the Atmos remix of Avalon. So I was wondering if we got past that point, if they would end up doing some of the other ones. And I think it makes sense to do this one next because Clearmountain also mixed this record originally.
Yeah.
I think this was the first one he did for them, and then he did Avalon. And after that, he kind of became like Bryan Ferry's guy who did all his records, from the early 80s to the present. So I would say it has very much the same kind of sophisticated sound as Avalon. This is not like the first album, but it's a good sign. And, I think if this one does well, maybe they'll go back and do the one before it and so on.
I also think this is the first one to debut on physical media too, because all the other Ferry and Clearmountain mixes have been obviously released on streaming first. That's why I was so surprised by this, is I wasn't expecting to see it. Now, are there other Roxy Music albums that I think I would have preferred? Yeah. I know For Your Pleasure has been, my holy grail for some time. But hey, I can't say no to more Roxy Music. And sort of as you pointed out, it's the beginning of kind of the Avalon sound. And, we've got Avalon, we've got Boys and Girls. Obviously, Bête Noire is going to be right around the corner. It's nice to hear, oh, okay, this is kind of where that strain starts.
I would have guessed that Bet Noir was going to be the next physical release, because the Atmos mix of that has been around for a while now. It came out summer of last year. I'm sure they probably will do it eventually, but I was kind of pleasantly surprised that it was another Roxy catalog title.
See, me too, and it definitely bodes well for the future, and it opens a lot of very interesting possibilities. Siren, come on, let's do Siren. So here's another one that I'm actually very excited for, and I think this is the latest, I should say, the furthest in the future. This is June 26th, so it's a very late June, and that's Stephen W. Taylor's Atmos mix of Chris Squire's Fish Out of Water. And oh my, this is tantalizing for a lot of reasons. The first of which is that this has a 5.1 mix, an existing 5.1 mix from Jacko Joksic. And you can see Jonathan is holding up the Blu-ray there.
Before this Blu-ray came out, it was originally exclusive to a box set with a DVD.
Yeah.
The Blu-ray came out like a few years later, as I recall. Yeah. I think the mix was done in 2018.
Yeah, and it's also one of those 5.1 mixes that's not particularly highly regarded. I know people who know this record very well and own that mix and have warned me not to buy it. So I'm excited that Stephen W. Taylor, number one, has never done an Atmos mix before this. So I'm excited to hear what he does in the format, but also that he's got a great set of ears, and all of his work has been exemplary, in my opinion. You know, sometimes he may use a little bit more reverb than I'd prefer on albums like Camel's Mirage, but just take a moment and consider his Hawkwind work. I think he's just completely revamped that band for me. So I'm excited to hear this personally.
Yeah, I would say for me, he's had more hits than misses. Like the Bebop Deluxe mixes, I think, are all pretty good. Yeah. Particularly like the later ones where the instrumentation gets more elaborate. Like the Drastic Plastic album has a really impressive 5.1 mix. The Camel stuff, I also agree for the most part, is very good.
Yeah.
And like you said, I think compared to this 5.1 mix, there's definitely room for improvement in a new version. Yeah. I think it has the same kind of problems that a lot of the Jacko mixes do. Like a lot of the instruments sound like very weak, maybe from like not mimicking the processing of the original. He puts like a lot of stuff in the center channel, like all the bass parts are in the center on this album, I think, which kind of works on this record because Chris Squire plays like kind of the upper end of the bass. So it kind of works like when it's the voice, but on the ELP stuff, like I remember like on the Trilogy album, like on the song Hoedown, all the bass is in the center and it just like sounds weird. But yeah, I mean, I like this album. I think there's a bunch of really cool songs on it. I particularly like the song Lucky 7, I think is really cool. And I'm curious to see what Stephen W. Taylor does with Atmos. Like, will he be, the type to put discrete instruments in the top speakers? Will it be more to like sort of elevate things a little bit? There's a lot of different ways you can go about it.
Yeah, and this was an insta buy for me. And on top of that, it is available from the Esoteric Recordings label, but it's like basically a 2-disc release, so it's not super expensive. I think I had maybe $30 or $40, even with the international shipping involved. So I personally, I've never heard this record, but I know that Yes heads say this is like the best Yes solo album. So again, opens up a lot of really interesting possibilities. Maybe we'll hear Stephen W. Taylor revisit the ELP catalog at some point. Could be interesting. But cool stuff. And this kind of ends our official announcement era, so to speak. And we have 2 titles to talk about that have been, I wouldn't say officially announced, but they've been discussed. And the first is Gentle Giants, The Power and the Glory, which Stephen Wilson mentioned on Phil Aston's interview that he did with him. I still have to watch the whole thing. Jonathan there has the previous 5.1 mix, which I have on the shelf behind me. But yeah, so I'm excited that Stephen's going back and doing some of the Gentle Giant catalog in Atmos. And I think most importantly, a lot of the stuff is no longer available. So in this case, him going back and doing it again makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, and I think it's impressive that he was able to get permission from Alucard to do this as a download release. So this is
Yeah.
not for a physical edition; it's for a headphone dust release.
Yeah.
And per his comments in the Phil Aston interview, he was able to include the motion graphics with the Atmos release, which is one of the coolest parts of this. I think all the songs have these kind of elaborate graphics that kind of mix the meaning of the songs with like the iconography, like all the playing card visuals and things. It's very well done. It reminds me a lot of if you've seen the James Bond movie Casino Royale, it reminds me a lot of the graphics they use in the opening sequence of that with the playing cards. But I mean, I think when we did that video with Cody last year, we talked about our favorite surround mixes. I picked this as one of mine. I mean, it's such a perfect album for surround because it's like super, super dry. Like, I think the only thing that has any reverb in this album is the vocals. Like, the drums are totally dry. And there's a lot of these, like, sort of parts that are dancing around each other. Like, it's not like a bunch of guitar players playing the same riff. It's like different parts coming from different locations. And, you know, having heard the Atmos mix from testing, I can attest that it takes everything that was good about the 5.1 and just expands it. So it sounds really good. And, I think, you know, the release I would be most excited about if they're able to continue with this is to do the first album in some way that people can listen to it. Because I didn't get the Unburied Treasure box set. It wasn't worth it to me to just have the one record mixed in surround. Yeah. But if they could do that as a download, you know, maybe with a new Atmos mix too, that would be very exciting.
Yep, you took the words right out of my mouth because that's the one I'm missing is the debut. And I'm hopeful that they'll find the tapes for Acquiring the Taste. That always bounces back and forth as my favorite Gentle Giant album. It's just so odd and beautiful and would be a perfect surround mix. Yeah, I'm excited to hear this. And I'm glad that Steven's going back and looking at these.
Any of the ones that were already done in 5.1, like, you know, you think about Octopus, like Knots would be amazing in Atmos.
Yeah, it would be.
From the 3-piece suite, like Peel the Paint would be incredible in Atmos. So yeah, if they want to go back and do all of them like they've been doing with the XTC and Yes stuff, like I would be on board with that.
Absolutely. All right. So I'm just going to put up a generic Quadio batch image. This was the batch number 10, which is already out. Our colleague Mike Vieta did a wonderful review of these for his channel if you're interested, but you have some speculation on what the next batch might be.
In this case, I actually don't. I haven't been too closely following it. I think we haven't quite gotten to the point where we're getting hints from as I mentioned in other videos, Steve Woolard, who's the Rhino A&R guy that oversees this series, and I think is the person we should be thanking for a lot of these surround releases that have come out of Warner and Rhino in the last couple of years. He posts on the QQ forum and likes to give these sort of hints when people are speculating. So I don't know if we've gotten to that point yet. Maybe I'm wrong and I just missed it, but there are certainly a lot of other albums that were released on the quadradisc vinyl format by Warner in the 70s that haven't been done for the Quadio series yet.
Yeah.
Funny enough, on the IA blog, just to sort of, you know, promote myself a little bit, I just did a blog like the 10 quad mixes I'd like to see get reissued on digital. And one of them, of course, was One of These Nights, which I guess we're probably not getting because it would have been on that Blu-ray edition. But even though there have been a lot of quad mixes released on, you know, SACD or Blu-ray or whatever format, there are still a lot of them that haven't been reissued yet. Like in that sort of time frame, you know, 1972 to 76, there were a lot of albums that were mixed to quad. So, you know, even if it's not something I'm particularly fond of musically, I think it's nice for kind of archival reasons to get these out on Blu-ray.
Cool stuff. Well, Jonathan, I want to thank you once again for joining me. This has been a lot of fun talking about this stuff. If you're watching and enjoying this, don't forget to subscribe to both of our channels. This is an official collaboration between my channel and Immersive Audio Albums. So all you have to do is just go down to the bottom of the video and click the thumbnail, and you'll see both of our channels pop up. About 60% of my viewers aren't subscribed, so make sure you are subscribed so that you can keep up on any potential reviews that we might do. I know for sure that we're going to review the Jethro Tull set, probably the Chris Squire mix. any number of these could be a possibility. So please do make sure you are subscribed, and also leave us a comment below. Let us know what you're most excited for in the upcoming months in the surround sound realm. So Jonathan, once again, thank you. It's been lots of fun, and looking forward to talking and hearing some great surround mixes in the very near future. Take care, my friend.
Same to you.
Alrighty, bye-bye.